أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا خيرة خلق الله، السلام عليك يا محمد بن عبد الله ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناقت برحلك، عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. Together inshallah. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. السلام على التسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. In my son's school, he is 10 years old, we suddenly saw in a particular WhatsApp group which have a lot of the parents in his class have a lot of messages going on. And these particular messages were of concern. Many of the parents were concerned about what just happened in my son's class. He is at year 5. And what apparently happened is that the teacher had put certain books, recommended books, on one side. And she asked, or rather he said, well, pupils, students, go and choose one of these books and read. It was reading time. Yes? So then the pupils went. But in that pile, there was a particular book, an interesting book, a new book. Yes? One was for boys and one was for girls. Right? Basically, the book was explaining the physiology of the boys. Yes, that was for the boys. And the other one was explaining the physiology of who? The girls. But in each of them, they actually did speak or did show certain drawings about the physiology of a girl in a boy's book and vice versa in a girl's book, right? Just to show them, yes, they weren't pictures, they were drawings, yes? Just to show them that the opposite gender's physiology, their private parts, yes? And also, importantly, they spoke about certain issues, such as how can a woman become pregnant? Yes, this is what happens as well. And other issues of sexual nature. It was concerning for parents because they didn't speak to their kids before the school have spoken to their kids. Some parents were concerned that this is too early for my child to find out about his private parts, to find out about the opposite gender's private parts. It's too early. Yes? And so there was a hoo-ha. When there was a lot of complaint, the head teacher apologized and took away the 2 books from the class. Now, why am I reciting this particular story? It's because of the new policy that was introduced in September last year, 2020, called Relationship and Sex Education in our schools. As you very well know, in these particular series in Muharram, we're trying to explore the challenges that we are facing as a community. And today, we're going to explore this particular avenue, this new policy that has come into our schools that must be taught in our schools. And your children have been or will be taught this particular curriculum. So we're going to examine this particular curriculum and find out whether we should actually boycott it. Should we actually not make sure that our kids are not exposed to this particular curriculum? Or no, should we actually encourage our kids to participate and listen carefully in this particular curriculum? Should we actually be reactive or proactive when it comes to relationship and sex education, inshallah? And as we tend to do, my dear brothers and sisters, we ask, what is the problem? So the problem is that many Muslims are against the new relationship and sex education, right? What it is called, as we said, RSE at school. There was a big hoo-ha. You must have all heard about RSE, right? You must have heard about RSE. There was a big hoo-ha. There were certain Muslims. They went in front of certain schools and did picketing and demonstrations. And there was a lot about it online, etc., right? But what I'm going to show you is how we as a Muslim community are very reactive people rather than proactive. How is that when we look back in February 2019, the government, the Ministry of Education, of course this is just in the UK, the Ministry of Education in the UK, they came out with a consultation paper. Yes, do you remember a few days ago we talked about political activism? Yeah, and we talked about green papers, we talked about consultation papers that the government keeps on, bringing out to the surface, and they say, we want your view. You tell us about this. Should we actually bring this to policy or not? Yes. How many of us are active in that particular sense? And my question is, how many of us as Muslims, we actually knew about this paper coming out February 2019, asking us what is our opinion about the new policy, relationship and sex education, that is about to be enrolled in September 2020. Remember, this is February 2019, right? So they did that consultation. Many people, thousands of people, they gave back consultations. Yes, some of you may say that these particular consultations are just an exercise. They're not really going to listen to us. Perhaps so, and I will prove this actually. However, it's important that we participate. At the end of the day, we come and say we gave our voice against this particular issue, right? If you come out and say, well, I'm against RSE, I haven't given this opinion yet, right? But if you come out and say, look, I don't want my kid to be taught relationship and sex education in school. No. Yes, I don't want them to know about this in this particular age. Well, where were you when they consulted? Yeah. So let's be proactive rather than reactive. But after the consultation, what did they say? This is quite an interesting quote, right, that I found in the policy itself. So they did a consultation, then they produced a paper saying the results of the consultation. Yes, you guys with me, right? So they said this. They said, looking at this is in page 8, point 26, if you want to reference it. They say, looking at the responses overall, a large proportion disagreed with the position on teaching about LGBT and guidance. Right? What do we mean by with LGBT? We mean LGBT stands for lesbian, gay, and bisexual, and transgender. Yes, this is the homosexuality that it is talked about a lot now in the current climate. Yes. So therefore, they did actually say that a lot of the responses that they have been getting or they got is actually disagrees with putting LGBT in the curriculum. However, what did they do? They said, well, we've decided that pupils should be able to understand that some people are LGBT. So therefore, the law affords them and their relationships recognition. So we will make sure that LGBT is in the policy. Yeah. So therefore, yes, a lot of people did say, look, we don't want to, they didn't listen to people, but it's important that we participate in that exercise. So we say that, yes, we participated, but the government didn't listen to us. Yes. So this is that particular consultation. Right. So then you saw the responses from different religious groups about the inclusion of RSE in our schools. So Ofsted, of course, it's not a religious, but Ofsted takes care of the schools, right? They were absolutely for it. You've got the Catholic Education Service. They said the content of the government draft guidance is compatible with a Catholic approach. Yes, it's compatible, right? And as you go down the Church of England at the end, it says they welcome the introduction of health education, which is in addition to RSE. So from September 2020, so that was last September, yes, we're in 2021 now, yes, but so last September, relationship education. I need you to focus on this, inshallah. Yes, relationship education, not sex education. So there is relationship and sex education, but relationship education is compulsory in primary schools. So you cannot, even if you do a whole hoo-ha, yeah, you know the hoo-ha, yeah. If you do the hoo-ha and try to get your kid out of relationship education, you can't, because it's by law. You have to have your kid, your child, has to be taught about relationships. Yes, we'll go into that in a bit. In terms of sex education, right, it's optional in primary schools. This is where you need to really, we all need to wake up, because the school might teach your child about sex, right? However, they don't have to teach your child about sex. They need to get your permission to do that. But maybe certain schools will do that without actually taking your permission. So you need to get involved in the school. Yes, you need to get to know the head teacher. You need to get to know the school teacher. You need to speak to the teacher about the curriculum for relationship education. You need to speak to the teacher about the curriculum for sex education in your child's primary school, if you have a child in primary school. However, what they say is that they must teach them about the elements of sex education. See, this is where not a lot of people knew about this, yes? But they need to teach them about elements of sex education in terms of their science and physiology, as I gave you the story of with my son, yes? They need to provide them with certain science curriculum that relates to human body and reproduction. So how does reproduction occur? They need to teach them that in primary school, but not through the RSE curriculum, but more towards the science curriculum. You see? But there is quite a big overlap. Yeah. So sex education per se is optional, but actually talking about reproduction and talking about human body is compulsory as part of the science curriculum. Yes? You guys with me? Inshallah. Excellent. Right. Relationship and sex education. So RSE as a whole is compulsory in secondary education. Yes? However, there is also a small clause in this that that you can get your child, a teenager or whatever in secondary education, you can make sure that they opt out, but it's at the head teacher's discretion. So if the head teacher says, no, your child has to do sex education, has to be taught sex education in secondary school, you don't have a say. Yeah? It's at the head teacher's discretion. This is in secondary school. Primary school, no, it's at the parents' discretion. You guys all Understand this? Yes? So if you have a child in primary school, yes, you can take them out from sex education. But if you have a child in secondary school, you've got to convince the head teacher or whoever is in charge. Yes? So what's the RSE policy? So all schools need an RSE policy. So they've all done it already. Of course, they've from September 2020, they started teaching RSE. And so what the government says is that the schools, they need to consult parents in developing and reviewing their policy. So this is not the end of the line. It's not written in stone. Yeah. So now the RSE policy is in place. They are teaching. I'm sure if I was to ask our kids here, right, I'm sure they've already been taught. But it's interesting how many of the parents have actually spoken to their kids about what's actually being taught. Have you spoken to your child in terms of primary, in terms of secondary? Because they might be embarrassed to speak about these particular issues, right? But have you spoken to them? I said, Baba, Mama, have you been taught these particular issues already? And you might have been taught about these particular issues already, right? Are you actually aware of what they are teaching? Have you spoken to the teacher? Have you spoken to the head teacher, right? So this is, I know this seems quite complicated, but this is from my son's school. I've actually taken this. This is the curriculum for RSE, right? As you can see in terms of the columns, they are from year 1 all the way to year 6. That's primary school. And in terms of the rows, these are the seasons. Yes, these are the terms. Yeah, autumn, spring, and summer. Yes. So you can see that from year 1, how old are they? Year 1 are around 6 years old, right? Year 1 around 5 to 6 years old. Yes. Year 1, they will be taught about identity, society and equality. They will be taught about mental health. They will be taught about physical health and well-being, right? They will be taught about drugs, alcohol, tobacco, etc. They will be taught all these particular things. And I have heard that there are individuals there are kids who have been taught about, the body, right? And this is your private part, and no one is allowed to touch your private parts. Yes, they've told them that no one is allowed to touch your private parts. Yes. So then as you move into year 2, year 3, year 4, until you reach year 6 is where I've put the arrow. If you can see the arrow all the way to the right, it says relationship and sex education. And this is where you need to get involved if you think that you don't want your child to be taught sex education at primary school. Yes, this is where it says, we're going to teach them about how a baby is made. Yeah, this is what it says there, how a baby is made at year 6. Yeah, so year 6 is around 11 years old. Yeah, they will teach them how, and they perhaps will show them certain graphical images of how a baby is made. Yeah, think about it. Is this okay for you? You want your child to be in that particular environment or not? Yes, be aware, be conscious, be proactive. Right? So this is, if you have a child at that particular age, have you seen the curriculum? Have you looked at the curriculum? Have you discussed it with your spouse? Right? It's important. It's important we know what's actually going on. All right. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Unfortunately, that's a very, very weak salawat. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Right, let's have a look at relationships, right? So what do they expect to teach in primary school, right? So by the end of the terms, by the end of the year actually, right? The primary school students should really know what is a family. Family are important, yes? Family can consist of 2 dads, they say, of 2 mums, yeah? Or a family can be just a grandma, just a granddad. A family can be a mom and a dad. Yes? But inshallah, this is not what we believe in Islam. And I will explain that to the kids as well. But this is what they will actually be telling them. Look, this is a family. But what's important is what we say is that there will be people who will call themselves, they have a family of two men consisting of two fathers or of two mothers. What we say is that we don't discriminate against these particular individuals, right? We have good akhlaq towards, as we have good akhlaq with everyone all around, right? As a mu'min, right, we shouldn't make fun of these particular individuals, as the kids. I'm talking to the kids here. You don't make fun of these particular families, right? You just know that they exist, but you know that this is against Islamic values. Yes? And inshallah we'll speak about that in a bit. So they'll actually speak about characteristics of a healthy family life. And sometimes they say the families actually look different to a typical mom and dad. Yes? So they'll explain to them that. They will explain what does it mean by a good friendship, which is good, very good. That's a plus thing. They will explain how a respectful relationship should look like, and that's also quite a good thing. Importantly, they'll explain to them, beware of online relationships, yes, where a lot of our kids, we don't know, as I spoke a few days ago about technology and online. Do we know what actually they're searching online, what they're finding online? Beware of online relationships where someone will send a particular message to your daughter who's around 10, 11, whatever, or your son will go and search about a particular thing online. Online can be used in a good way and can be used in an evil way, right? And so therefore they teach them about online relationships and also how to be safe in a relationship. Yes? So what I found is that I found this particular institution called the Association of Muslim Schools UK, right? And this particular association, they've come up with a curriculum that has been approved by Ofsted and the Department of Education. It's been approved. It said, yes, we allow this curriculum to be taught in Islamic schools. No problem. Yes? And I've actually gone and had a look, and it really looks like a good curriculum. I couldn't see a mention of LGBT in it. Maybe I missed it, but I went through it again. I couldn't see a mention of LGBT stuff in it, right? So they seem to have convinced the government to say, look, this is an RSE curriculum that we're going to teach it's going to be taught in Muslim schools. My daughter goes, my teenager, 14-year-old, goes to a Muslim school, right? And I know that they sent us an email. They said, we are following this particular curriculum, right? That opens up another debate of whether we should send our kids to Islamic schools or we should keep them in non-Islamic schools. Yes, that's a completely different debate. There are a school of thought that says this, and there are a school of thought that says no, we should keep them in non-Islamic schools. That's for another day, inshallah. So this is where I want to explain to our kids, and also importantly to the parents, how and what you should say to your children. And this is what I mean here. We've got to be proactive. So before they are told about RSE, yes, in schools, you should be able to sit down with your children and speak to them, right? Speak to them about relationships. Speak to them about family and Islamic values. No problem at all, right? We are not against anyone, right? We respect people. As Muslims, we respect people. I don't want this to be, people to understand it differently, right? And I'm not calling for anything. Why I'm saying we need to be proactive with our children. So we teach them about our own religious values before the school teaches them about something else. Yes? Do you understand that? Yeah? So sitting down with our children, speaking to them about Islamic family values, and what does a relationship mean? What does a family mean? Yes? This is vital, very important. So how does a healthy family look like in a Islamic context? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He says that Ya ayyuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have created you from males and females. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. We have created you tribes and different ethnicities, etc., so you can get to know each other. Yes. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the male. So there is a male. Yes. And a male is a male. Yes. A female is a female. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Yes. And another one says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. The Lord has decreed that you worship none other than Him. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And now in Arabic, بِالْوَالِدَيْن comes from al-walid and al-walda. Right? Al-walida and al-wal. So the father and the mother. It comes from the father and mother. So al-walidain does not, if you want to bring the father and the father, it's not called bil-walidain. If you want to bring the mother and the mother, yes, that there are other families that have mother and father, as we said, mother and mother, it's not al-walidain. Only in Arabic language, the mother and the father combined is called what? Bil-walidain. Yes. So Al-Quran is telling us here that what? A family consists of a mother and a father. Yes. A relationship, my dear brothers and sisters, in Islam is when a woman gets married to a man. And a relationship only happens through marriage. This is our Islamic values, right? That a woman gets married to a man. And that is the only time where a relationship can occur. Yes? Other than that, it is impermissible in Islam. Yeah? We speak to our kids in that particular way. So, let's move into sex education by the end of secondary school. Because you know in secondary school, yes, and forgive me, I'm opening up these particular topics. I know for some maybe it's uncomfortable, right? But it's important that we speak about them. It's very important that we mention them, we speak about them so that the community are aware of what actually is going on. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So by the end of secondary, right? Why did we say secondary, not primary, in terms of sex education? It's optional in primary, yes? In secondary is compulsory, but discretion of the head teacher, you can remove them from sex education. So people should know, this is from the government, I've taken it. What is a healthy, intimate relationship? What does an intimate relationship mean? You sit down with your child and speak to them about an intimate relationship. What does an intimate relationship mean? It's awkward, isn't it? It's awkward. How can I speak to my child about this, I hear you say? Well, do you want others to teach about them? Right? If you have that awkward relationship with your child, well, their teacher in their school, are they going to teach them then? Yes? So be proactive in that. Think about, I'll tell you in a bit, inshallah, about strategies into how to do that. Facts about reproductive health, including fertility. Right? Identifying and managing sexual pleasures. I don't want to go into details on this, right? I don't want to go into details on this. But there's so much details about this particular issue, right? You've got to remove that stigma and speak to your children about this, right? Characteristics of good friendships. What does a good friendship mean? Yeah. Contraceptive choices. Yeah, it's important. We speak about this especially, for the teenagers. And then in the future, they inshallah will get married. You say, well, you get married, then you've got to use contraceptives. Yes, this is important. You've got to identify it. You don't discover it when you get married. This is the problem, yeah? When they get married, they start to identify things and they start to discover things because they haven't been educated. Why? It's because, it's aib. We can't talk about it. Yes? We shouldn't talk about these things. Why are you talking about this during Muharram nights? Yeah, I hear this. Isn't there any other topic that you can talk about? Yeah. And there is our community, mashallah, right? There is our kids in schools fighting with the issue of RSE, but here we can't speak about it. Yeah. What about pregnancy and abortion? What does Islam say about abortion? You speak to your kid about it. No, they find out later on. When they get pregnant, right? When she gets pregnant but she doesn't want the child. Pregnancy by mistake, as they say, right? What happens then? Does she know what are her choices, or does she have any choices? Explore that with your children. And of course, sexually transmitted diseases. Inshallah, doesn't really affect our children, but still, you've got to speak to them. But they will be teaching all these things, my dear brothers and sisters. Only if you opt them out, right? But they will be teaching this and much more during sex education in secondary schools. Yes? So they will also be teaching the kids about the British law. What does the British law say about marriage? So they will say that it's okay for a man to marry a man under British law. They will tell them this. Yes? You've got to speak to them about, well, yes, if it's right under the British law, it doesn't mean it's right under our Islamic law, our Sharia law. It says no. We say, no, it is impermissible for a man to marry a man. No, it is impermissible. It's not right for a woman to marry a woman. No, only marriage happens in a relationship is through man and a woman. That is the only allowed relationships in Islam. Yes? So they will talk to them about the law about violence against women and girls. Right? And this is, I think, really interesting, because do we speak about these particular issues to our community? Right? And are we allowed to, is physical abuse okay in a relationship? Right? Is psychological abuse okay in a relationship? Yeah, let's get out of our comfort zone. I know this is not very comfortable, but let's get out of it. It's time to get out of it. Yes, and be proactive. They will speak also about pornography. They will tell them the laws behind pornography. Have you spoken to your kids about it? Or are you waiting for them to go and discover pornography? Then you'll think, I should have spoken to them about it before. Yes. They'll speak to them about gender identity. We had a workshop with Sayyid Ali today about gender identity, right? Is there such a thing as a gender identity? Oh no, there is no thing. There is only one identity, and there is that male and there is a female. There is no other identity in Islam, of course, right? But they have introduced many other identities. Yes? And you gotta speak to your kids about these things. Say, well, in Islam. And by the way, we are more than entitled to talk to our kids about our own religion. Don't be afraid of speaking to your children about what does Islam, your religion, the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about these particular issues. Don't let anyone stop you. It's not against the law. Is it against the law for me as a Muslim to speak to my child about laws, Islamic laws on these particular issues? Is it or is it not? Right? Later inshallah. Right? So therefore what is important is that we must speak to them about these particular issues and not be afraid of speaking about them. Yes? And they'll speak to them about their sexuality as well. Yes? And extremism and radicalization, etc. And also FGM. Yeah, they'll speak to them about FGM. Maybe you should be proactive and say, well, there's only some FGM is not allowed, and they might say that certain Muslims do FGMs, but that's not allowed in Islam, right? So these are particular things that you must speak to your children about at the right time, by the way. Yes, at the right time. And it's up to you to assess which time. There are certain children that are quite advanced in their thinking. You know your child very well. So don't tell me, when do you think I should speak to my child about this and about that? You choose, right? You know your child very well, you choose. But you gotta do it. Don't leave it to others. Yes? You've got to be proactive. I'm going to keep on repeating this. Please be proactive. Yes? So, what they say about LGBT is they say ensure that LGBT content is fully integrated into the programs. This is what government are telling schools. They're saying, well, you've got to make sure that LGBT is fully integrated. So you speak to your child about LGBT, right? And our view on an Islamic view on LGBT is that no, it's not allowed. It's not allowed for people to become homosexuals. In Islam, it's not allowed. And I am proud of my religion, right? But I will not discriminate against people. It's important. I will not discriminate against someone who is homosexual. Absolutely okay with me, right? I'm not going to discriminate against you, right? Anyone you meet at work, anyone in society who is homosexual, that's their choice, right? It's not for me to judge them or tell them, look, you're going to go to hellfire or that. No, it's not for you. It's not your role to go and tell them you're going to hellfire. Yes? Muslim or non-Muslim, right? It's for you. You know that this is a impermissible action. But it's important that we distinguish between having the desires and feelings and the thoughts with what? With actually practicing homosexuality. Yes? So it's not haram to have thoughts about homosexuality. We can have thoughts about anything we want, right? So having thoughts about it is not haram per se. Yes? But actually acting on it. So acting on homosexuality, yes, that is absolutely haram. That's impermissible. Yeah. So there are people in society who have thoughts about it. Yes. That doesn't mean that it's haram. That doesn't mean that these people are bad people or they are going to be misguided, etc. They have these thoughts and they can work around trying to perhaps correct these thoughts, right? But it is not haram per se to have the thoughts. Yes, you're with me? Yeah, it's a very important distinguishable issue here that if they act on the thoughts, then yes, that will be impermissible, right? So therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, here they say there's got to be fully integrated. You speak to your children about LGBT. You speak to them about LGBT. And also, if you find individuals in our community, I know I said earlier that it's not up to you to tell them it's haram or not, but it's up to you to also perhaps speak to them and guide them towards, there are certain people who know about this particular issue more than you do, right? If you find someone who wants help, if someone who says, look, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to things like that, I've got my own life, and let them be, We don't force anyone to do anything. We're not a forceful religion. But if there are individuals who say, look, can you help me? I've got these thoughts, but I want to talk about this to someone. Well, there is this organization called Strong Support. This is Brother Ali Jafari here, right? He's come from Manchester and he's established this organization, Strong Support. You can try to get in touch with him. Inshallah, he'll be here at the end of this program, and hopefully in Q&A he'll be here as well. And you can try to speak to him. You can give them the website. There are people out there who can help. Yes, but let's not, perhaps, if it's not my area, it's best not to get involved too much. Do you get that? Is that clear? Yes. So, other topics taught, and the issue with RSE as well, my dear brothers and sisters, is that we've just focused on these particular sexuality, LGBT, sex education, etc. But there are a lot of really good things that are being taught in RSE. So, how to treat others with kindness. This is beautiful. How to sustain positive emotions and mental well-being. Really great. How to recognize and report abuse, including emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Really good. Really important. How to use internet safely. They will be teaching all these things, and we support all these particular issues. Education on menstrual cycle, right? For our sisters. Mental health. So important, mental health and the harms of social media. They will be taught all these particular issues, right? So, just very quickly, how do we start teaching our kids about RSE? So, I need you to create a plan. It's really good to create a plan, right? And so you create so that you can plant these seeds to open natural conversations. You got to have a proper plan. Don't just come in randomly one day and sitting in the table and say, oh yeah, what were you taught? And things like that. Have a proper plan in your mind. Ask them what they know already. By the way, all parents, you'll be so naive to think that your children don't know about these things. They know. They've been taught. They talk about it in the playground. They speak about these things. So don't be so naive. So speak to them. What do you already know about this? Yeah, have an open conversation with them, right? Teach them steadily. Don't tell them everything at once, and quite informally as well. When you're having lunch, when you're having dinner, maybe just like, but you've planned this. Yeah, don't let it spontaneous. Just a subtle question, maybe. Not like, okay, now the lesson is about LGBT. Sit down, let me have a whiteboard. No, it's not like that. Make it a steady way of doing it. Debrief and reflect. Then try to find out how the conversations are going. If it's actually affecting them negatively, then seek advice, right? But have a particular strategy into how you actually speak with them, right? And ask them for feedback. Ask them for feedback. Is this really helpful? It's not. Of course, we are not teachers, but we are parents. Yes. And being a parent, you naturally know, inshallah, how to parent. And this is part of you parenting. Yes. It's another sort of difficult, I know, as area where you've got to parent. This is your responsibility as a parent. Yes. As a parent, you've got to provide this particular guidance for your children. Yeah. So some action points. All parents, don't say, no, I don't have time. I'm busy. Yes. Prioritize this. All parents must be involved, must get involved in their school. One way or the other. You must get involved. Try to get involved. Speak to the teacher. Speak to the head teacher. Find out what's going on. Not just about RSE, but other things as well. Yes? Involve other communities in objecting to any policy that you think it's wrong. Yes? And also, why don't we have community RSE courses for boys and girls? I invite the Leeds community to establish a course. Maybe it's a 1 month course, right? One for girls, one for boys, right? About teaching them about relationship and sex. Just one for boys, one for girls. And of course, there has age limits and for specific ages, right? Teach them about puberty. What does puberty mean? They don't need to discover them by themselves. It would be nice if someone can teach them this. Yeah, this is very important. Yeah, so I invite, perhaps Leeds will be the first community, right? So there is this particular website by, I think in Canada, Sheikh Arastu, who has this course. He has boys' health and development, and talks about chastity, and talks about marriage, and talks about anatomy and physiology of puberty. Yes, talks about hygiene and do's and don'ts, about looking and touching and all these particular things. Yes, so some people are proactive out there. Yeah, it's important to be proactive. And what I will say this, my dear brothers and sisters, is that I personally, and this is my personal view, all of this is my personal view, by the way. So no one holds any responsibility other than me. Yes? So this is my personal view, and you're more than welcome in the Q&A today after prayers to come and challenge me on this, right? There is no anger, there is no, you're wrong, I'm right, etc. Let's have this dialogue. This is my view. If you disagree with it, I more than welcome you to come and discuss it with me. But what's important, I say this, is that I personally am not afraid of sending my children to be taught these particular issues. Right? I'm not afraid. What should I be afraid of? Right? Only if I have spoken to my children, I've had a frank conversation with them. Remember that plan? That steady way of talking to them. Me and my wife, we sit down, speak to them in the best possible way. Let them go. What are we scared for? Nothing. Let them in fact get educated about other people. There are other people who have families. But if you're scared that your child might get thoughts about this and things like that, then honestly you need to perhaps, and again this is my view, you need to strengthen that relationship with your child. Really get to know your child even a bit more. Yes. But again, as I have given you all the rules, you can opt out of sex education if you want. Yes. In primary school and in secondary school, you must get the permission of a head teacher. But you must prepare yourself. If your child is going from primary to secondary, must prepare yourself that maybe they are forced to have sex education. Maybe the head teacher will say, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. So let's have that conversation. So what's the take-home message for today? RSE is not all that bad, so to speak, because there's so much negative publicity about RSE. It's not that bad. Yeah, so there's a lot of really interesting stuff. They talk about mental health, they talk about relationships, they talk about all these things. It's important that we understand the curriculum. I invite all the parents to comprehend and understand the curriculum and be proactive with teaching your children. It's so important to be proactive with teaching your children. Yes, but I emphasize again that this is our Islamic view, and you must respect those individuals who have that particular orientation. They have that particular view. We do not discriminate against anyone. No, we call for any discrimination, right? This is the beautiful religion of Islam, right? That we don't force anyone to anything, right? We have our belief about this particular issue, right? We hope others will respect us about our belief, right? And don't be weakened by the media. Have strong faith. Islam tells you that this is not allowed, right? Say that as a Muslim, my religion says that this is not allowed. I will teach my kids also that this is not allowed, right? Be proud of that. But I also respect you, whoever you are, right? That you have that particular orientation, you have that particular mindset. I respect you, but I will never discriminate you. But leave me to be, right? I want to teach my kids about my own religion. Yeah? And I think that's absolutely fine. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So my dear brothers and sisters, these are the nights where we are approaching Ashura. And it's important that when we attend majalis, we try to soften the heart. We try to attach our heart towards Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. You see, without him trying to fight for justice, fight for equality, fight for human rights, fight against oppression, we would never have gathered here today. We would never have discussed these particular challenges. Never. But what is important, my dear brothers and sisters, is we recognize that because of his sacrifice and because of his companions and family sacrifice, that we are sitting today and we have the opportunity to speak about important topics in society, important challenges in society, my dear brothers and sisters. Today, my dear brothers and sisters, we'll be talking about the son of Al-Hasan alayhi salam. This individual who very much looked, and this particular individual very much looked like his father. This individual who was as brave as his father, who had the strengths of his father. Yes? It's important that when we think about Al-Qasim alayhi salam, the son of Al-Hasan, on the day of Ashura, the young Al-Qasim was prepared to fight for the sake of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Reports say that after being given permission to fight by Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, Al-Qasim came out with a face looking like a full moon. He had nur on his face, bearing a sword and wearing a shirt and a mantle. On his feet, my dear brothers and sisters, he wore sandals. He had to fight on foot. The sandal strings on his left foot was cut off while he was approaching the battlefield. So he stopped for a moment to tie his sandals, regarding those enemies as no more valuable than his own sandal, paying no heed to their multitude, feeling unconcerned about their thousands. As he was thus engaged, Amr ibn Sa'd attacked him, la'natullahi alayh. Hamid ibn Muslim asked him, "What do you want to do with this lad? Are you not satisfied to see all the crowd that surround him?" He said, "By Allah, I should attack him." He hit Al-Qasim with his sword. The lad face down down crying out, "Oh uncle, oh Amma." The reports say, my dear brothers and sisters, Al-Hussein alayhi salam came out to his help like an angry lion and struck Amr with his sword. Tried to avoid it with his arm, so the arm was cut off from the elbow, causing him to let out a very loud scream, which was heard by the enemy. The soldiers of Ibn Za'ad charged in order to rescue him. Amr met them face to face, causing their horses to trample upon him and to eventually kill him. La'natullahi alayhi, la'natullah ala Sa'ad. But importantly, my dear brothers and sisters, Al-Qasim alayhi salam was left on the floor. Bleeding with his injuries. After some time, the cloud of dust dissipated. So Al-Hussein was now seen standing at the head of this young boy, examining his feet. Al-Hussein said, "Azza wallah ala ammik an tad'uhu fala yujibuk. لو يجيبك فلا يعينك أو يعينك فلا يغني عنك بعدا لقوم قتلوك الويل لقاتلك." So he said, "Heart it is by Allah that you call upon your uncle to help you, and he cannot answer your call, or that he's answer it, but he cannot do much for you. It is a lone voice whose enemies are numerous and whose supporters are few." Then Al-Hussein alayhi salam, O mu'mineen, he carried Al-Qasim away. Remember, he was just a young boy. Al-Qasim was put on Al-Hussein's chest. His legs were dragging on the ground. Al-Hussein put the corpse beside that of those of the family who have been killed. Then he raised his eyes to the heavens and supplicated, "Allahumma ahsihim adada wa la tughadir minhum ahada wa la taghfir lahum abada sabran ya bani umumati صبرا يا أهل بيتي لا رأيتم هوانا بعد ذا يوما أبدا." He said, "Oh Allah, count their numbers." He's talking about the enemy. He said, "Count their numbers and do not leave any of them alone, and do not forgive a single one of them." And then he talked to the Motad and his family, including Al-Qasim, and he told them, "Be patient, O cousins. Be patient, O my Ahl al-Bayt. You shall never meet any hardship after today. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي القدير. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. My dear brothers and sisters, as you have seen in the news, that our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan are going through very, very difficult times. As mu'mineen, we have to pray for them. These are very important times. And especially those individuals who follow the school of Ahlul Bayt in Afghanistan, where I've seen pictures today or videos of the fighters in Taliban putting down the flags of Ya Hussein. Yes, my dear brothers and sisters, what can we do? We can be political activists. We can work very hard to help them from our own phones and computers, but also we can supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, raise your hands to the sky. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, 10 times. Ya Allah, 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 Ya Allah. Allahumma bihaqqi Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Lift the oppression from the people of Afghanistan. Ya Allah. Oh Allah, bihaqqi Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Give safety to the people of Afghanistan. Ya Allah. Allahumma bihaqqi Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Lift the oppression from the people of Bahrain, the people of Saudi Arabia, the people of Iraq, the people of Yemen, all over the world. Ya Allah. Allahumma give shifa to those individuals who are suffering every single day with illnesses. Ya Allah. Allahumma ajjil li waliyika al-faraj. Ya Allah. Allahumma give us the opportunity to visit the shrines of our imams. Ya Allah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.